Hello, everyone. I just realized I forgot to update the background of the stream. It's now every Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern because it was too late in the day for Q and me, so we're kind of low energy. But let's see. How are you doing, Q?
Fine, and you?
Yeah, pretty good. I'm excited to live demo the OpenAI plugin.
Yeah,
Let's see how it goes. I think people
yeah.
will be excited. So it does, I think, text completion, chat completion, and image generation.
Image, yeah,
Cool.
exactly. So, because everybody is talking about ChatGPT right now, so we had to do a plugin, obviously,
Of course.
and we'll demo it right now because I mean, there's a lot of things to say about this plugin. Actually, even me, I'm learning new stuff all like every day. So hopefully, we'll be able to present some stuff. So let me share my screen.
Yeah, because actually, I mean, for the maybe some of you registered to the Copilot beta,
Yeah,
and Q is actually you're actually training um, GPT as well
yeah.
OpenAI to understand and answer questions and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for the documentation. So like when you are asking things in WeWeb to like for the documentation, I was actually doing the training of the AI, and I'm still discovering new parameters to change. So that's really cool. But
Nice.
there's quite a few, so or quite a lot, I would say. So uh,
I'll show the replay from last week, where we
yeah,
you actually demoed the
sure.
Copilot.
I mean, we can show it a bit like during this live too, because it's in
Yeah, we could do
production
that
for
for sure.
a few selected people, but we can like redemo it, obviously. But here we want to talk about the OpenAI plugin that we just added to WeWeb. And this plugin helps using OpenAI API in your WeWeb project. So be it the chat API, as just said. So the chat one is the one that you use when you're using like ChatGPT on their own website. That's what the API they use behind the scene. So we'll talk about it later. We'll first begin with the text completion in our examples, and the text completion is just like I'm giving you a bit of text, and please complete this text. And you can obviously give it like directions on how to complete this text. So it's really useful to generate IDs, to generate marketing copy, to generate, I don't know, like fake data, these kind of things. And actually, when you're using like so when you're asking questions to the AI in WeWeb in the Copilot, it's a text completion. We're not using chat here. We're using text completion because we're giving like part of the documentation, and we're asking the AI to answer you according to the question you asked and the documentation. And in the plugin, we have also image generation. So using DALI to generate images from a prompt. We don't have embeddings because that's really something that you should do on a backend, because that's basically sending like lots of data, comparing them, to also fine tune your API. So embeddings and fine tuning, it's really like sending lots and lots of data to ChatGPT to make it understand like the context of your prompts, and having your own kind of like your own ChatGPT. So that's really something I would suggest doing on the back end, because that requires lots of processing power and lots of data. So it's not
Eh,
really
By the way, I
useful.
mean, I know you're going to explain it as well, but um, all your calls to OpenAI should be made from a server, not in the front end. So the part
Yeah,
with the secret API key and your prompts.
yeah,
But I mean, Q is going to show you. But basically, by using the OpenAI integration in WeWeb instead of the REST API plugin, for example, you are ensuring that your secret API key and your secure
yeah,
prompts stay private.
yeah,
Hi, Xavier.
exactly. Hi. I was a bit mistaken, because when I was saying backend, it's just that there's so much data that you have to send to ChatGPT that it's definitely not even useful to use our plugin, even if it's like our plugin is sending data from a backend, but here really you have to send like lots and lots and lots of files. So the best thing to do is actually to write this kind of scripts on your backend and not using our plugin at all. And in the end, we don't have embeddings and fine tuning, so at the moment. So you can't do it. And speech to text is pretty new in the API, so we didn't do it yet. I think we'll maybe do it later, but it's to basically speak to the API. So
I think there can be some really cool applications for that.
yeah, exactly.
I hope we add it.
Yeah, definitely. Especially for people, I was really amazed, like for people that have kind of issues reading text, for example, or reading screens. It's really powerful what the API can do. So yeah. So I will send you this link in the chat. It's basically where OpenAI explain to you all these services, and you have tutorials and examples of what you have to do, what you can do. And here you have also the documentation of all how to use the API, basically. So there's lots of things, like many things here. So we won't explain everything. Basically, OpenAI revolves around the concept of models that are like the model that are used to answer a user according to what you ask. So normally you had like maybe I think they are, where are they? Here, models. So yeah, they're the ones you know really well, like GPT-4, GPT 3.5, DALI, but there's also like open source one like DaVinci that we'll use. And I won't explain all of them, but basically those are like the algorithm that were created by the OpenAI team to analyze your data and also all the data from the web and give you an answer. And these models, they have like different capabilities, different speed. They don't cost the same when you're like using the API. They have a maximum number of tokens. So we'll explain this later, but it's basically all the text you can send and receive from the API at once. So you see most of them, they're like 4K, but I think GPT-4 now is 8K. So yeah, that's basically the models we'll use to get to do our API calls. And then you have to select between text and chat completion. So according to if you want, so they explain this really well. For example, if you want to complete a text, you will use text completion here. So like, for example, write a tagline for an ice cream shop. And if you want really something that looks like a chat, you would use chat completions. It's a bit harder to use because you see you have like different type of payload to send, but hopefully everything is handled in our plugin, and I will show you this just after. So yeah, let's dive into this and go in a project. So basically, if you were starting from zero in the plugins, in the extensions, if I'm not mistaken, you would see OpenAI. So let me show you this on a new project actually. Let's create a new one. So in my workspace, let's call it test because why not? And here, I'll zoom a bit in the plugins. You see here in extensions, you have the OpenAI plugin, which is in beta because we'll add new capabilities and refine it that you can add. And the only thing you have to do at the beginning is add an API key. So you can find your API keys here.
And it's quite funny
In the
because our plugins and the extensions are actually ordered by usage. So the more people
yeah
use them, the higher they are in the list. And OpenAI is already
yeah
pretty high, so even though
yeah
we
yeah
only released it 6 days ago.
yeah, it's really funny. Yeah, on the live you've done on Monday, it was like really at the bottom of the
Yeah,
list. It's really funny.
nice.
So yeah, here and like you have your workspace, you have your API keys, and you can create a new API key, and those are secret keys. So it's specifically said here, not like you shouldn't share your API key with other people, and you shouldn't use it in the browser or client side is like mobile apps, browsers, everything that's on the device. So that's why your plugin actually makes the request from a backend, a small backend that we've created, so that your API key is not exposed. And we'll show you why this is really important in a second example. So if you're using OpenAI, please use the plugin and don't do this with the REST API plugin. So then you can enter your API key, and I will go back to the previous project to show you what you have to do. So tutorials, OpenAI. Let's go to English Live. So here you have your API key, and here you have like what we call secured prompts. So that's something that people really struggle with at the beginning, but uh, what's like if you use OpenAI or like ChatGPT in your app, what makes really the value of your app are the prompts. Because basically, anybody that would find your prompts could reverse engineer your app in an instant, because they would just have to use your prompt, and because it's the same API at the end of the day with the same data, they could like do exactly what your app is doing without even thinking about it. They just have to take back your prompt. So that's why we have like secure prompts, and secure prompts are actually prompts that are stored on a server, and that won't be seen when the user they are doing like the front end requests. These prompts won't be uh, in the request, so people can't reverse engineer them. So it's really important that if you have like really powerful and intensive prompts, to store them here and not use them in the workflows. I mean, use them, but not like create your prompts in the workflows. Really use this one. So I will show you with a really simple example. So basically, to add a prompt, you would
Sorry to
add an
interrupt.
item. Yeah.
In the chat, does that make sense, or is anything unclear? Don't hesitate to interrupt us and ask questions if anything
Yeah.
is blurry. That's why we do these lives, so we can answer questions
Yeah.
live. So go for it if you have any.
So here we would add a new prompt, give it the title. So it could be anything you want. And the title is used only to find it back when you're using it in the WeWeb workflows. So for example, no, not test, it's not cool. Nickname. And then you can find a nickname for, and then you could add a variable. How to call it? Maybe animal. And what we'll do is that when you use it in the workflow, you will be able to change this variable on the fly, but the whole prompt like won't be like will be computed on a server and won't be seen in during the request. So I can show you this with a specific example I created. I have a city prompt, and what I ask, it's a really simple prompt. So here that it wouldn't make sense to hide it from people, but it's just to give you an example. But I ask user a country, and from this country, I want ChatGPT to give me a city from this country. And so I stored it here, like as city, and you see I have a country variable. And then I created a simple form with a drop-down with actually a few countries. Sorry, it's a little blurry, but it's because I zoomed in the app. And when I select the country, so for example, France, I added a workflow and submit to ask to do a ChatGPT and OpenAI request. Actually, it's not a chat completion, it's even a text completion, because here, from the prompt, I just want an answer, like if the AI was completing my text and I'm not speaking to a chat. You wanted to say something, Joyce?
No, I was because you can see in the action of the workflow you chose create completion, and that corresponds to the text completion product in the
Exactly.
OpenAI API. So
Yeah.
like you said, there's several products in OpenAI which you showed at the beginning, and then we
Yeah.
have different actions depending on the
So you've
API.
got chat, text completion, and image generation. And when you're adding a new action in a workflow, when you have the OpenAI plugin, you would see them here, like create completion, create chat completion, and create image. And here we have a completion. And basically, you can select all the options that you would find in the API. So actually, if you want to get a test, yeah, sorry, there's a question. if I understand
Yeah. So
correctly, any string enclosed in double curly braces will appear in the workflow as a variable, right? Exactly. Like
yeah,
here you see
and
my
that's
prompts. If I use city, I have the variable country. Yeah.
like completely fine because you're going to ask the user to for an input for that variable, so the user already knows that there's this input, so you're not revealing anything by exposing that in the front end.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's yeah, exactly. The variables are coming from an input, so the user would know already. But how you would use this variable in the prompt here, he or she wouldn't have a clue of what you're doing. That would all append on a server. And so you're selecting a secured prompt, the model, obviously, which is the most important thing. So you've got like lots of models. You have to check them on the docs, honestly, because they are
Yeah.
really different. But most of the people, they're using DaVinci 3 at the moment. It's the most powerful one, the most expensive, but the most powerful one. And then you've got all these options that are coming from the API. So I will just explain them a bit. So you've got
Yeah, and sorry, actually, if
yeah,
you have
yeah,
access to OpenAI, if you're logged in, you have access to a playground.
yeah,
So it can be easier to just test things around in the playground of OpenAI, and then once you're ready, once you're happy with the results that it's giving you, you can set everything up in WeWeb. So, but
exactly.
like with any external API, we recommend that you spend some time learning the API you're working with before doing things in WeWeb.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the playground is here. It's really cool because you can select the model. So basically, text completion, chat, and other things that we won't use here because I think it's for fine tuning. And here you've got the model with some explanations. So you see most capable model, or at the moment it's DaVinci 3. And then you've got all the parameters like temperature, maximum length, stop sequences, stop p. So everything is explained, but basically it's to play with the probabilities of ChatGPT answering you a certain text or not. So temperature, top p, they are like they are explaining how wild the AI should be according to your request. So if you set a high temperature or like I think a high top p or low, uh, it's like saying to the AI, you should be really wide and like give me crazy ideas. And if you set it to really low, they will be like really straight to the point. But it's something that you have to fine tune by trying, because if you're giving like a huge context to the API with a big prompt, if you're setting a really low temperature, for example, the AI will be really answering you back what you just asked most of the time.
Yeah.
So it's really something
And
to play with.
and actually, with the OpenAI plugin, maybe we'll have time to show you at the end of the live. But we released a template that uses text completion to generate regular expressions, a regex.
Mhm.
And in that case, we chose a temperature of 0 because we want it to be like exactly. We don't want
Yeah,
the answer to be creative at all.
yeah. And here you've got the maximum length. So keep in mind that the maximum length of the answer is taking into account also the prompt that you send. So if you're sending a huge prompt, you don't have space to do huge answers anymore. So like the 4K tokens, for example, you have to take into account your prompt and the answer. Then you've got stop sequences. So when it's to say to the API, stop answering when you return a specific text. Frequency and presence penalties, just to make the API not repeat itself too often. And the rest is really like really specific fine tuning. So I will let you check it. But basically, all these parameters here, you can play with them in the playground. And what I will do is in this workflow is just use the prompt and replace the country by the country that was selecting by the user. So in the end, I'm just doing this. So if I go in the playground, I will just take my prompt. So I'll zoom a bit. Give me a city name for a city in this country. Here I will say France, submit. So it gave me Paris. Here, changing the temperature uh, won't change anything because the request is pretty obvious. But if you're asking something really wild, so for example, give me suggestions of things to do in France. So visit the Eiffel Tower, take a tour of the Louvre. I think if I change the temperature, maybe it will give me something really weird. Let's just try. Yeah, you see, sample French cuisine in Marseille. It's a bit farther from, like, it's not something you would specifically do in Paris, but because I have a high temperature, that's what it gave me, or go wine tasting. No, sorry, we're in France, so that's okay. But you see, it's things that are like not as common as the thing that he gave me when I was using a lower temperature. So let's try with a really low temperature, actually. Yeah, okay. It's just really funny because when I lower the temperature, it's really stuff that's tourists do. Like it's really classic stuff that the
Yeah, yeah.
tourists do. And when I hire it, it's like more funny stuff. So if you want to have suggestions on what to do in France, actually use a high temperature.
If it's your
You'll
if it's your
get,
first time, use temperature
yeah,
0. If it's your second or third
yeah,
time, low.
exactly. And then, so that's exactly what we are doing here in this workflow. And we have, so you've got also all the other options like the maximum number of tokens, the number of choices. Here we'll generate only one. So we want only one city, but we could be asking for more. So the AI would answer with like many cities, for example, in this case. And here you have got all the options that we had in the playground. And so if I test it in my workflow, you will see that in choices, objects, I've got Paris. So let's try with China, Beijing. If I try again, or with another country, Rio de Janeiro, you see this is working. And this is only a text that is bound to a variable that I update when there is an answer from OpenAI. So yeah, this is a simple text completion.
Can you show maybe the payload in the browser?
Yeah, sure. So if I go to network, and I will ask in France again.
So this is to illustrate the difference between when you go through when you use the OpenAI plugin versus when you use
Yeah.
when you make the same call using the REST API plugin.
Yeah. So
So
you see
here,
the
like,
request is actually done
yeah.
to WeWeb and not OpenAI. And our backend is returning the answer from OpenAI. But your API key isn't seen here. Like it's not in the headers, it's nowhere. So people can't see it. And also in the payload, you've got only the secure prompt variables, but you don't have the prompt. So people, they can't know, like they can't see what was the prompt that you used in this case. And you get the response as if you are using ChatGPT. So with the choices, the answer from the API.
Does that make sense
And
in the chat? What were you going to say?
no, nothing. I was checking the chat.
Oh,
Xavier
right.
understood apparently. It's nice. So what we'll do here is actually we'll do the exact same thing, but using the REST API plugin, and you will see why you shouldn't do this. So the first thing to do is actually, you know what? I will hardcode the country here just to show you. but I added a small API request workflow on a button, and actually this workflow is doing a post request to the OpenAI chat completions API. So exactly what our plugin is doing, but you're doing this directly from the browser, so on the client side. So here you've got the messages. So you actually have to create it. And here I took the example of a chat completions to show you also the difference, because we were using text completion, but it's exactly the same logic. It's just that when you're using a chat completion, you have to give a role and a content to the API, because like ChatGPT has to know if the user is asking something or if the system is asking a way to answer it. So let me just explain what it does. Is that when you're using a chat, you could be setting a system prompt that says, for example, you're Shakespeare. So answer to me like if you were Shakespeare. And then the user is asking something, and you would pass it as the role user, but at the same time, you would pass as the role system, you are Shakespeare. And then the AI will answer to the user as if it was Shakespeare. So you have to create objects. And the difference is that text completion is you're just sending a big chunk of text. And when you're using chat completion, you're sending different objects with different roles. So user, system, I think there are others too. And they're all in their API. So you just have to create an object for this,
Yeah,
the
and all
role
of
and the
that, like,
content.
if it sounds scary, all of that is actually
Mm.
documented in OpenAI's API
Yeah,
documentation. So again,
yeah,
spend
yeah.
a little bit of time understanding how it works.
Yeah, I will just show you like chat completion. You see here.
Yeah,
So
the
this is
first
an
message is the
example.
system.
Yeah, this is an example in Python, but basically it's the same kind of object as we have in WeWeb. But you see, like in system, you are a helpful assistant, user who won the World Series in 2020. Uh, and then you can send back also other user and assistant messages like the previous answer, so that you can create also a chat that keeps in mind the context of the previous questions. So when you're using ChatGPT on their own website, that's what they do, because you can ask a question, and if it's not the right answer, you could just say change this or that, and it will remember what you asked and what was answered before, because you've got the whole list of messages, and that's how you do it. But we'll show this later. Here, I just want to show why using REST API is not cool, and you should not do it. do it. So let's get back here. So actually here I changed the content a bit. I was like asking ChatGPT to propose a nickname for a dog. So in my messages, the model I'm using, let's just GPT-4. The temperature I want to use 0.7, so the classic one. And here in the authorization, I have to send the token, so bear and the token from my API. So I won't show you the whole token. I think you will see it just after, but so I will remove it. But basically, you have to send the whole
Yeah.
token. And
We're still waiting for someone to do the extension that covers our
yeah,
tokens and API keys during live streams.
yeah, Matt. Anyway, I created a new one just before the live. I just forgot. So this is supposed to be seen, and I will delete it. And so you have to actually send it here. So first thing that's really bad is that your private key will be visible. And the other thing that would be bad is that the whole prompt here, the content will be visible. So that's not a huge problem here, because the prompt is really dumb. It's like nickname for a dog. But if it's like the whole context for your app, that's like you're creating a whole SaaS or like a company on top of ChatGPT, and you have your whole prompt visible all the time, you're just giving away the engine of your company, and people can just copy it. Let me show you. So if I go to the inspector, and I mean, maybe this seems scary and like really weird to go in the dev tools and the network, but actually everybody can do this. And everything that's visible here on my screen is actually visible if you are using it on your Chrome,
Yeah.
Edge, I mean, any browser you're using. So if
Yeah,
I hit,
if you start,
yeah,
as soon as you start building like projects that are a bit serious, that have sensitive data, it might be personal information for a user. you need to be familiar with that network tab in the inspector, because you
Yeah.
need to be able to check what your APIs are returning, what you're sending to the API, what your requests look like, to make sure that that everything is secure. So even though it's
Exactly.
scary, it's it's something you'll want to learn as soon as you're handling sensitive information or private
Yeah.
information.
And by the way, we are talking about this for OpenAI, but that's true for every API that has private
Yeah.
keys. So if you are using Stripe, Stripe has public and private keys exactly for this. So you should use the public ones in WeWeb, and when you add the plugin, we store the private one on our servers. But for everything, if you're using any services, just use public keys and never use private keys on the browser because they would be exposed.
Yeah, and I just shared an article that I wrote about how to build secure web apps, and I will also share the my talk at API Days that goes into more detail to help you with that in the chat.
So if I hit submit, you see here the request. So it's taking a bit of time. It's taking a bit of time to be done because ChatGPT is pretty slow today because demo effect, and most of the time when the US are waking up, ChatGPT is like, oh, there's too many people. But the thing is here, so where's my requests? So it's still going through data.weweb because that's how the REST API plugin works. But if you go in the payload, in the headers, here you would see authorization with the whole token. So here I'm creating the app, so that's no biggie. But imagine that when your app is published, anybody that would go in the network tab and hit the submit button would see your key. So your key is live, like on the web. So that's really bad. And the other feeling is like you've got all the data. And actually, you don't have only the prompt. You've got also the temperature, the model. So everything is like just take it, and you just have to copy it, and you've got the whole message with the content. So here you've got my prompt. So you can reverse engineer everything. And the thing with ChatGPT, especially with the new AI technologies, is that if you use the exact same data, it's even easier for someone to copy you because you would have done all the work. And just by getting back your data from your app, it would be really easy for a competitor to just reverse engineer and actually have better results because you would have done the hard work. And like the competitor would just have to give new data to the model so that it works better. So that's why you should never have your prompt visible here, except if
And
it's
again,
the user prompt, like we'll see after.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So if there's intelligence, if you spend time building that prompt, then you want to hide it. And in the following example of a chat, like obviously the user typed in a question. The user already knows what question they typed in, so there's nothing secret about that.
Yeah, it's just as an example, but
Yeah.
like in the end, we will show the last example where we've done a chat. You could have like prompts from the user being visible from the browser. That's no biggie, but the key and the system prompt, at least they should be
Yeah.
hidden. So yeah, don't do this. And here we'll do the last example with the chat completion.
And actually, I'd be curious to know in the chat if like what kind of, if you're thinking about building something with OpenAI, if you have ideas, or I mean, maybe some of them are secret and you don't want to share, but if there's some ideas you want to share, I'd be curious to know what you want to build.
Give us your prompts in the chat. No, don't do
No,
it.
but for example, I think Copy.ai is a good example of a product
Mm.
that's built on, well, on AI, and it's I mean, yeah, their entire business is based on how clever they were to generate good answers.
Yeah.
So, So
Even
the
our
idea
Copilot.
isn't especially original. Like a lot of people would want to build
Yeah.
that tool, so there's nothing secret about an idea. That's why you can't copyright an idea, but the execution is where what matters, and the
Exactly.
prompts are part of the execution.
Even the prompts we're using in the WeWeb Copilot, they are hidden for this reason, because then it would be really simple for people to just, copy some of the logic that was here. But that's the thing with ChatGPT. I mean, like, because we are all using the same product, and it, like, you're asking an API that has the same, how to say, data for everybody, the same logic. You just have to reverse engineer the API call, and it's done. I've got the reference to Xavier, and I love it. So nice.
Yeah, I'll show the comment because for people on YouTube, I didn't get the reference.
It's from an old video game that was really badly dubbed.
Okay.
But it's a meme on the internet, yeah. So here I've got a chat example, and I ask a user which place he or she wants to visit. So for example, I could say the USA, submit, and I created a prompt from the user, so which is a simple prompt. It is like, I want to visit what you said, so the USA. And then, so you see it's really slow today, but what I do is that I create a list of messages with the role user and then the content. So I want to visit plus what was typed in the input. And then I ask OpenAI to do a chat completion with GPT-4 with the messages that were created. So actually there's one, but I will send back also like the context of the previous messages and a system prompt. So system content, which is called system because I don't have any imagination. But this system
Your
prompts,
temperature 0.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, and this is the thing I don't want to share with users, is my secret prompt, which is actually not that intelligent, but still it's an example. And I'm just asking as a context to ChatGPT to behave as it was a city guide and to provide some things to discover as a tourist in this area. So like, and what ChatGPT is doing is that it merges what the user is asking and the system prompt to do the answer. So it would give you, when I tried, hopefully this will work. Yeah. Let me
And I
check.
think
No.
because OpenAI calls this like system, I found it very confusing. I like to think about it as like you're giving the AI a personality, like,
Yeah.
and it's what's making your tool unique because you created that. You asked the AI to
Yeah.
answer with this, with this in mind. So, you know,
Yeah.
like you
But
said, in this case, the AI is a city guide. It could be a sarcastic city guide. It could be a
yeah.
rude Parisian city guide. And
Oh,
that's what
that's
makes.
that would be nice.
Yeah,
I
I
want to
was
try
born and
this.
raised in Paris, so it's no insults intended. But yeah,
Sad,
that's what makes your product unique.
Sadly, I think we are hitting rate limits because that was working
Ah,
really just before the live, and when I tried just like two times just before the live, it was timing out all the time.
yeah.
But basically, you've got the personality, but you can also, what's really interesting is that you can give a specific set of guidelines for the AI to follow. So you could be like, give me like answer without this word, or like give me
Maybe.
the answer. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm thinking maybe you can show
Sorry.
the Regex template because
Yeah, exactly.
well, it's not a chat, so it's not the system, but actually the template GPT template also has a system, but the since we're
Yeah.
hitting limits.
Because you could, what's interesting, and you will see in the regex, is that you could ask also for a specific, like you could ask ChatGPT to answer in a specific way. So, for example, like using text separators to answer as JSON, as CSV, to answer with JavaScript, Python, everything you want, so that you can also parse back this answer and use it in your project. And that's the way you can use it in apps like WeWeb, but also if you want to use it in Make, in Xanos, Firebase, it's really the way you want to use this, because you can then talk to ChatGPT as if you were talking to an API sending you back JSON, for example. And that's really powerful, because then you can automate talking to ChatGPT and the back and forth. So here, basically, we have, so let me ask for a new regex. We are asking ChatGPT to create a regex that does something. So I will just take an example. So I want my users to only enter only email addresses. Then if I submit this, ChatGPT will hopefully give me back the right regex and explain it to me.
And you have access to this template. So when you create a new project in WeWeb, you now have access to, you can choose the regex template if you want to. If you want to reverse engineer.
Yeah. So it's giving me back the regex and also the explanations with bullet points. And you would say, yeah, but normally ChatGPT is just answering you back text. So how have we done this? In the secured prompts, in the return regex, you've got this whole text. I will show you this in the playground. That will be easier, actually. So let's go in chat system. Is the demand I want to match only email addresses. So it's what generated by WeWeb and sending back to ChatGPT. So we ask it, we give it the user demand, and then we ask it to provide the regex pattern without explaining the regex before. And then it should answer back with a specific format. So regex and separator, explanation in HTML. So actually it's HTML. And then a title. And so it does this. You see with the separator, the end, then the HTML, and then a title. So I think it's just...
I got cut off because of the maximum.
Yeah, I have to. Exactly. So you see, everything is here.
Xavier is saying we could create a custom app on make.com from WeWeb using OpenAI. Could be a meta in the meta. And Alexia is asking if Xavier means using WeWeb to build a new automation builder using prompts. I think not W is getting excited by this this idea.
So where is my workflow? So if I go in new regex, normally I will see the workflow here on the submit button. So there's a lot of variables that we are changing, but basically we're asking ChatGPT with the secured prompt return regex. The need is what was typed in the user input. And then we pass the results. So what we do is that we split the results on the separator that we asked as a system in the system prompt. And so it gives us back an array of variables. And the first one is the regex, the second one is the custom HTML, and the third one is the text, the title. And then we use it to display. So let me check it here. We use it in the answer to display in specific parts of the application.
Yeah. And I think like when you look at the workflow, that's why I'm suggesting you look at the template and reverse engineer. It can look complicated at first, but it's because there's a lot of that workflow is doing a nice design, a nice UI for the user, for the end user. The OpenAI part is actually like 2 actions. It's actually really simple. But then we added a bunch of stuff so that it would look pretty, to display a loader, to have that nav bar with a history, all of that. So I think it's worth a closer look.
Exactly.
When you want to.
So here, like we use the splitted, like the array with the splitted variables, and the thing we display here in the input is actually the first one. So you see the regex. Here it's the second one. It's the HTML with the explanations, and the title we use it here to explain what was the regex. And that's the way you can use also the system prompt to get a specific like type of data back, but also form like not a form, but like asking ChatGPT to give you really a specific
Format.
type of data format. Yeah, thanks.
Hi, Michael.
Hey. So that's what we are using here, and that's also what we're using. We have another template where we just copied ChatGPT, but we added some new features
personality
in it. Yeah. So let me unzoom because it's really weird when it's zoomed in. So create a new chat, and so you've got like the role, like you can change the AI role. So like your helpful assistant or your Shakespeare, your Victor Hugo. So let's ask Shakespeare. And then you could ask questions here. So how would you explain front end versus back end to an 8 years old? And here normally it will answer this question, but as if it was Shakespeare. Because in the workflow, ask OpenAI. So there's also like lots of variables just to change the front end. But you will see, ask OpenAI, you've got the messages that we just created. So this one is sending in the browser from the front end, but that's no biggie because that was the question from the user. But you've got also the system content famous individual, which is Shakespeare, which is a secured prompt here. And so this secured prompt is saying to the AI, you cannot tell that you are an AI language model. You are, and here you are Shakespeare. And if I go back here, yeah, okay. It understood it answered like Shakespeare. So that works.
Nice.
So yeah, that's pretty much it for the plugin, I think. We've got also the image generation, but it's really easy. Just like you're sending a prompt and it will give you back X number of images that you can use in your project. But yeah.
Cool. I'll just share in the chat. I'll share our user doc for to use the OpenAI plugin. So we go through some of the examples that you showed, Q. So yeah, if it's easier for you to review stuff in writing. But I think we covered pretty much everything. Again, I think we'd recommend getting familiar with the OpenAI documentation, having fun in their playground, so testing things in their playground before moving to WeWeb. Kind of similar to when we also recommend doing a design in a tool like Figma before integrating in WeWeb. It's kind of the same for in this case for OpenAI. Yeah. Does anyone in the chat have any question? If you don't, we'll leave it at that. And if some of you registered to the WeWeb Copilot beta, you will get access today, and you will receive an email explaining a little bit, what the next steps are. So today you'll get access to what Q showed earlier, the fact that you can ask for a question on like how to use something in WeWeb. Like, so basically instead of looking through the user doc, you can ask our own chat
I got to
GPT.
show. Can quickly show this.
And yes, Michael, you can still register. Let me share the link with you.
Zoom a little. So yeah, here you would have the Copilot button. Let me show it better. and then you can ask a question. I also ask it to create a page, section, an element, or generate images.
That
And asking a
that will
question
not
is
be available for you now. So you will only be
okay.
able to
So
ask a question as a beta tester for now. The create
okay,
page and section will come in 2 to 3 weeks, but you will be able to ask something like using here, like, yeah, how to
how
add
to add
payments to your app,
payments,
for example.
and hopefully it will answer with the Stripe plugin, and the URL should exist. Nice, cool.
Yes. No
Yeah,
demo effect here.
it's still a beta. So and actually, it's really cool if you just answer if the answer was helpful or not, because we're still fine tuning the AI, because sometimes it still
Yeah.
answers weird stuff, and we're trying to improve it as we speak. So yeah, please, if you could help us on this, that would really help.
And actually, maybe I can show you something else. Can you share my screen key? Because I
Yeah.
lost it. Yeah. Um, so the other thing you should be able to do is, I already did it here. So let me just, I will unbind this. So here, for example, I just have
Oh, I want to
a
see
list
this.
of yeah, I hope it works. It's still a beta, so be generous, but send us all your feedback. So if you have feedback, please share it on feedback.weweb.io. If you're a beta tester, we take all the feedback, but just be aware not everything will work. And here, basically, I have a list of characters. I know if they're human, male or female, and I have a search bar, radio button, and here I can select a gender. So here, what I can do is I can ask WeWeb Copilot to filter my characters by name, gender, and species, for example. And here I have to tell Copilot what data to use. So my list of characters, and then my variables, basically. So the component variables that come with the search and all of that. And
Mhm.
then if I generate, it can take a little bit of time. Again, we're making an API call, so it can take some time to get the response.
Yeah,
And let's see
and
if
and also don't hesitate to try it again, because most of the time it's not because of WeWeb. It's also OpenAI is also still in beta, and they have lots of people using their API, so you've got lots of timeouts.
that's a really good point, actually, because if you go to OpenAI's documentation, you'll see that a lot of their products are in beta. We kind of forget it.
Yeah.
So in this
Whoa,
case, I don't think it
that's
worked.
that's a
Let's
huge.
see. Yeah, it's such. So don't be like, for now it's JavaScript. It returns JavaScript. In a V2, we will try to generate no code formulas for you. Don't be. It's actually okay that it's JavaScript. Like, I don't know JavaScript, but I don't care, because in order to maintain this, I don't need to know how to change the JavaScript. Although, if I know how to change it, I could probably fix it much quicker. But in this case, I just need to try again. So generate new code, because here it's okay. So let's see, actually, if it, because it's returning an empty list. So no, it's not. In this case, it doesn't seem like it's working. Let me change my prompt. Filter my list of characters by name, gender, and species. Please, maybe I just need to be polite.
Yeah, I think
And
it works. It's
now,
just filtering on too many things, so you need to have something on all your filters.
no, I mean, I tried it before, and I actually don't like it. Can work without. You mean having selected something here?
No, it's just that you need to have something entered in the search, the
Yeah,
gender,
not necessarily,
and
because by default, when it works by default, it just so it understands. It doesn't, if empty, it just shows everything.
if you ask like filter my list of characters by either name or gender or spaces, so maybe it understood that filters, they are independent.
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, this exact prompt I know can work sometimes. But yeah, for sure
Okay.
you can play. Oh, there you go.
Oh,
So this time it
Joyce.
worked. You have aliens, now you have humans. You can look for Rick.
That's cool.
And yeah, in this case, there we go. But yeah, it's sometimes like right now we had to try it 3 times to get something, but it's still easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, than
I think
doing.
Alex is just
Sometimes it's
suggesting the same thing as was saying. Yeah, that's the limit
yeah,
that we are working on this, because you still have to understand like with the logic you want to get in the formula. Otherwise, ChatGPT could be a bit opinionated on stuff. But that's something we are like trying to
yeah,
improve.
and that's why we need beta testers, and all the all the feedback you can provide us will be helpful. Because yeah, so basically what would be awesome is when you try something, if you can the perfect thing would be if you take time to record a short video and send it to us here. That would be awesome, because that way we know exactly what we tried to do. So like a short video and a link to your project so we can have a look. That's like the ideal, but of course if you don't have time, that's fine. Just comments or text comments are fine as well. And I don't know why the link isn't going to restream. So there we go. All right. I think that's yeah, I'm reading Alex's comments. So for people on YouTube, you just oh yeah, because the filter is empty. And maybe sometimes it
Yeah,
can't
because I
use the
think
filter. Yeah.
it was creating an end, and like end with the
Yeah.
search bar that was empty. It was filtering on. It was actually working, but too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the limit. I mean, it's still in beta. OpenAI is still in beta. Copilot is still in beta. So don't hesitate to give us feedback.
Yeah.
And again, you can still revert to asking us, checking the docs if you have like complex questions. But that's a start, and hopefully it will get better when we see the improvements in AI. Hopefully, we'll get better in the following weeks. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the ignore if empty is like something that we can train it to do fairly easily.
Yeah.
I say that I am
Yeah.
absolutely not a developer. I have no idea, but I trust the team. I know it's easy for them. All right, cool. Well, thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks, Q, again,
Yeah.
for doing this live, and we'll see you next week for another
See
live.
you in 1 week. Bye.
Bye, everyone.